Recording. And oops. Go back. So yes, I did. Thank you, SJSU. Founding partner. All right, guys, let's do it to it. So my name is Kelly Williams. I'm a supervisory librarian at the Gwinnett County Public Library, the Sewanee branch. Gwinnett County is just northeast of Atlanta, if you don't know where that is. But most everybody knows where Atlanta is, so that's how I geolocate myself. I am going to talk to y'all today about getting the most out of your virtual programs. I think that virtual programs are here to stay and that they're very important. There's a lot of good things that we can do with virtual programs and a lot of ways that we can make them even better. I think that any library can improve their recorded programs or lessons and expand their reach online, and this presentation will hopefully help show you how. So virtual programming before, during, and after the pandemic, how is it still relevant after? When my library started, we hadn't really done virtual programs at all. We had almost entirely done in-person programs. We would sometimes record them and put them on our YouTube page or our Facebook page so that people could watch them later, but we hadn't dipped our toes. I mean, we knew what Zoom was. We had a general idea, but we didn't know near as much as we do about it now. We ended up using Zoom, Google Meets, and Hangouts. Some people use Blackboard. But for our virtual programs, the ones that ended up being recorded, the main ones that we ended up using are YouTube and Facebook. Both of these have a lot of great options and a lot of ways that you can share it with people. And so that's mainly what we're going to be talking about today, since that's what my library is doing. Benefits and downsides to virtual programs. I personally think that benefits outweigh the down, but we're going to cover both just in case. Longevity is definitely the best one, in my opinion. Things can go up on YouTube and they can basically stay as long as you want them to be on there. A program that you invented and recorded and put online in 2020 can still be active in 2030, assuming YouTube's still around. So the ability for a single program to last over a long stretch of time is enormous, the ability for that. The second benefit, and the one that I personally enjoy the most, is the skills that we've picked up over the course of time. So the camera work that we know how to do, the recording, the training that we've had on like iMovie and Final Cut Pro and Audacity. You don't want those skills to just disappear into the ether. There are a lot of cool things that we can do with them, even when we're not doing virtual programming anymore, even if we did. And then accessibility is one of the great ones, because if somebody can't get up to the library, they can usually at least get on Facebook or YouTube, and they have the option to see our capabilities and our skills and the things that we can bring to them. So if we have a resume workshop and they can't make it, they can always catch up to it online after the fact. Accessibility is actually also one of the drawbacks, because if they can't get up here and if they don't have a reliable Wi-Fi connection or a device that they can view it on, they don't have access to some of our great programs. The time that it takes to put into the virtual programs is another one. When you're putting together an in-person program, you're planning what you're going to say, whether or not you need any supplies. If you're doing a craft, maybe you're putting that craft together beforehand, setting up chairs, things like that. And all told, once you get good at it, it really doesn't take that much time. But when you're recording a virtual program, you're doing all of that, and you're writing a script, you're putting a storyboard together, you're taking the time to actually record the program and get your video editing done, and the upload time it takes to get to YouTube. I know when that takes forever, especially if you've got a slow computer. So time is a huge factor that you have to be aware of when you're talking about virtual programs. And then low feedback is actually one, because when you put a program on YouTube, it can sometimes feel like you're kind of shouting into the void a little bit, because we've got some awesome videos on our YouTube page at the Gwinnett County Public Library, GCPL. We've got some awesome videos on there that have more than 1,000 views, but they have 3 comments and 4 or 5 likes. So you're not getting anything out of it the way that you would from an in-person program. All those drawbacks aside, I think that the benefits of it do outweigh the downsides, and that virtual programs are here to stay. So I'm going to talk about 3 main things today for the ways that you can streamline and improve your virtual programs. We've got the before, the during, and the after. Before is storyboards and organization of your program before it even gets to the editing process. We've got improving the process, which is over the course of recording it, putting together, and editing it. And then last but not least is going to be my favorite section. That one's a little bit longer because that's my personal favorite, is the peer-to-peer feedback that we implemented here at my branch. So thing number 1, the before. Storyboards are something that my manager instituted to get our staff on board with the way that a virtual program needed to be organized. As you can see here, you can put a lot of information all in one place, and it helps you organize your thoughts and the way that you're going to put the video together before you even get to it. You can see here, I've got thing number 1, which is the graphic. This is where you're going to put, are you going to have a slide there? Are you going to have a picture pop up into the background of your video? Are you going to have video? Are you going to be on camera? Those are things that you can put in part 1. And so you've got your organization down of how that's going to go. In part 2, the script is a great place for you to be super specific about exactly what you're going to say. In in-person programs, unless you're presenting on a big topic that you've done multiple times, you're often just kind of spitballing it and going with the flow and reading the room and changing what you say based on what's going on around you. Whereas in recorded programs, you can put down a specific exact script of the things that you want to say and how you're going to say them. It's also an option for people who enjoy spitballing, like me, to put something more along the lines of a welcome and an explanation of what's going to happen in the video. And that gives you kind of the freedom to decide what you're going to say as you're saying it. But I've had a lot of staff members that are more comfortable with just straight up reading a script. And if you can come across naturally while you're reading a script, that's more power to you. I personally can't read a script without sounding like a robot. And part 3, how much time is this going to take? So if you can see on my background storyboard, I allotted 5 seconds for the intro slide. You really want to think about how much time your programs are taking. We've been trying to do 5 to 15 minutes maximum. And the 15 minutes is, the first half would be explanation, and then the last half is like a craft or some other fun stuff, or like a demonstration of what's going on. As anyone who has used TikTok can attest, people's time span and their attention span is super short. I have been known to scroll past a 2-minute video because it was just taking too long to get to the point. So that's something that you want to think about when you're planning your programs, because it's a place where a lot of people can get lost. This is the first place where you can really start to offer feedback. So if you have your staff member put together a storyboard for their program, and then maybe they share it with you, you can start to make notes. So you can see some of the notes that I've made here. Don't forget to update the calendar title on the website, or you can give them positive feedback and point out things that they may have missed or things that they may want to try to make it come across a little easier online. Being more specific, and especially if you know that they're not a person who can spitball, maybe they need to read off of the script, this is a good place where you can put that down. Shameless plug. This is my absolute favorite slide that I've ever put on a library program since we started doing virtuals, because just this little guy with his sheet of money that he's waving at himself, it just puts me into hysterics every time I think about it. We did this for a Money Smart program that we did for Money Smart Week back in April, ways to save money at your library. So it's cute. You know, you can have a lot of fun with it. At the beginning of it, when we were starting to do our virtual programs, we were doing kind of a sage on stage kind of thing, where it was us talking to the screen and just covering the things we wanted to cover and a slide or two here or there. And people, you know, they go to YouTube and they go to Facebook because they want to be entertained. You got to make your programs at least in some way entertaining. So it's a good way to, it's a good thing to use the storyboards, because then you have all of the details and the flourishes that you want and see what it looks like and what it sounds like and tie it all together into one great production. So this is the before the storyboards. So you can answer in the chat or whatever you want to do, but I want you to think, how can you implement them in your programs, and would they improve your process that you currently have going on? Cool little screen jumping there. All right, so part 2, this is the deering. This is when you really get going into the filming and the editing. And there are a couple of things that you want to think about really specifically when you start to kind of improve your process. You want to get into these programs, and when you're filming them, think about the top 4 things that are the important parts to cover in your script. So number 1, by and large, the most important thing when you're putting together a video is the sound. You can maybe try to edit out like AC sounds humming in the background, but if somebody's banging books onto a cart behind you, there's not going to be a great way to edit that out. If you're speaking so quietly that every word, you know, people have to crank up their volume to be able to hear it, you don't want to do that either. You can change the volume, you can maybe hide background noises, but there's not too much you can do with bad sound. So think about that as one of the first things that you want to cover. The second one is lighting. Sometimes you can make screens lighter when you're in the editing process, but at a certain point, it's going to get kind of washed out looking, or it's going to be too dark. We've found that natural lighting is the best. You can see my boss, Mac, here is taking advantage of the natural light that's coming back in behind him. But this is one of the earlier videos that we did where he was just kind of talking into his desktop, because at the time that was the only camera that we had, was the one that was on our computers. So work with what you've got, but if you have the capability of getting a phone or a ring light or something, think about your lighting and the way that it's going to affect it. The third thing that you need to think about is camera placement. So shameless plug again. Hi, this is me on the right. You can tell me I look good in red, that's fine. Natural lighting is the best. So you can see the way that it's coming in from that giant window in the back. It just makes everything, makes the colors seem more natural. It makes things flow better. And you're also kind of getting contrasting colors here too when you're looking at what your camera is looking at. So we've got the red, we've got the blue, we've got the white, we've got the darker colors at the bottom where the shadow starts to kick in. And it just makes it more visually entertaining. If it was just one camera in one spot for a good long time, it gets boring to watch after a while. So camera movement is number 3. You can always break it up with slides or interesting graphics, or you can do, if you're familiar with iMovie at all, you can do the Ken Burns effect where it kind of slowly zooms in on your picture. So there's a lot of things that you can do to save the camera movement afterwards. But if you have the opportunity to kind of swing it around sometimes or change the viewpoint that you have of the people that you're filming, that would be great. And it's really going to improve how people are watching your videos. The fourth and last thing that this is a feedback opportunity for is your script. So you can maybe stop if it doesn't feel natural, or you can wing something off of your script that you maybe didn't think about beforehand that just in the moment feels better. Sometimes when you start, you get on a roll and you just kind of keep going and going and going and building momentum during that process. And it's a great way to, whoever is filming you, or if there's somebody there helping, they can kind of point you in the right direction and tell you whether something feels right or if it feels wrong, or if there's maybe a different spot in the library where you want to film. It's a great place for feedback. Okay, so another thing to work on is the training. There have been so many cool videos that we've watched from people who do YouTube, like they do vlogs, or they're YouTubers by trade, that have great camera positions and sound tips and filming and editing. And they want you to be better at your filming and editing too. So there's a lot of cool things that you can do on YouTube where you can watch it and get some ideas about how you can improve your process. There's a lot of good stuff on LinkedIn Learning too. I will say that I went through a 3-hour iMovie course on LinkedIn Learning, but I didn't quite get it until I got hands-on with iMovie myself. So something to think about as well. When you're doing training, especially with stuff like this, hands-on, you'll learn so much more than you do from the YouTube videos. So, and you also kind of want to think about what kind of editing software you're going to use. Right at the beginning of this, really our only option that we had was iMovie. That was the one that it's simple, it's easy to use, it's on all MacBooks, preloaded, and it just was the simplest thing for us to learn when we were trying to keep our head above water. But an industry standard that people use is Final Cut Pro. I've tried it a lot. It's kind of like iMovie amped up. It's iMovie to the max, and it's great to use. DaVinci Resolve is actually a good free one that a lot of people use, because if you don't have the resources to pay for the licensing for Final Cut Pro or for Adobe Premiere, the free softwares are actually going to be what your customers are probably using. So when you're learning that, you're also learning a way to help them use the free software and the ones that are going to be available to them. Speaking of free, Audacity is the best. It is such a good sound editing software, and there are so many great things that you can do with it. I haven't even begun to scratch the surface of all the things that it can do. And there are so many free and easy options out there that you can easily learn to use. So this is the kind of the wrap up of the during section. So I'm going to take a breath for a second and I want you guys to think about, and you can put it in the chat if you want to, but just think like, have you seen a presentation that could have been edited better and had terrible sound? And are there ways that you could have improved your programs, or that you would have improved other people's, if you have the options here before you that I've talked about today? Water is the ultimate brain food. All right, so part 3, my absolute favorite, peer-to-peer feedback. This is something that we instituted in my branch when we had a couple of programs that had already gone virtual. They had been live for a while. We were still doing curbside service only at that time, so we were closed to the public. We didn't have any in-person programs back yet. We had just the virtual ones, and we had some live ones as well for book clubs and language learning things, for things like that. But virtual programming was what we spent the majority of our time on. And like I said earlier, it can feel like you're shouting into the void, because you're putting these programs together and you're putting these hours of work and effort into it, and you're not hearing anything really back from it from the people that you are trying to get it to. So what we did was we had them do 2 positive comments and 1 constructive criticism after watching each other's videos. We gave them training time, go watch what your coworkers have been doing, and report back. Let them know what they did a good job on and what could have been improved for next time. This came up with a couple of tangible and intangible benefits that I'm going to go into. The first tangible one is that the person who created that program or edited it or helped on storyboard it all has these specific actionable items that they use to, feel okay about the programs that they did. Make sure to feel like they did a good job, to get that positive feedback, and to think about things that they could do for their future programs. So you can see here, the acting is hilarious and well done. That one was kind of a surprise, because the person who did it kind of felt like they were stilted on camera, but it turned out that people really enjoyed their videos. And, you just don't get that from the number of views that you have in your programs. If people were putting this in the comments on YouTube, then you would have it, but it's just not a thing that people do on YouTube very much. The second tangible benefit is number of views. So I don't know what other libraries are doing, but one of the things that we do is program counts to see how many people our programs are reaching and how much of a job that we're doing. So when your staff is watching it, you're actually amping up that number of views a little bit, which I think is a great thing to be able to prove that, you know, with these tangible numbers, that your programs are benefiting the community, people are watching them, people are enjoying them, and that your programs are worth something, you know? An intangible benefit of this is, you see my happy little chemical on either sides of that? That is the chemical symbol for serotonin. And serotonin boost was what my staff members were getting weeks, months, up to a year after their programs had gone live. They had somebody go back and say, you know what, you did a fantastic job on this. And, you know, specific things about their program that they thought were funny or they thought were cool. And they're just getting that like rush, that positive rush that you get when you get positive feedback from somebody, especially somebody who works with you and has known you for a while. It just makes it feel all that much better. If you can see on the top left, my staff members were filming a skit out in the woods. We did a foraging program, and on the right, she is pretending to be a park ranger, helping Mikal on the left, our artist in residence. She forgot her paintbrushes, so they made paintbrushes out of natural materials that they found in the woods. And although they had fun filming it, and they did a fantastic job. They really did such a good job. You have to go watch this video. It's so funny. They did a fantastic job, but they felt uncomfortable on camera. You know, a lot of people aren't actively looking to become a YouTuber, and a lot of people haven't even been on camera before, except in like family photos. So being on camera and getting more comfortable with it was a great skill that we didn't think that we would pick up over the course of this, but it ended up happening. It was great. And then Lori, my staff member on the bottom right here, she actually still gets teased to this day. It's been almost a year since this program came out, but she used glitter in this science experiment, and it is still in the break room. So if you know, if you've used glitter once, it's in your house forever. So, and it's still in our workroom. Another awesome and tangible benefit that we didn't foresee when we put in this peer-to-peer feedback process was that it was going to improve our future programs. So Wilson and Sarah here did such a good program about recycling and growing plants. Sarah on the right is in her character, Professor Profundus, which was in an earlier homeschooling video that she just kind of used to pop up and give a short explanation or a short tutorial. And she got feedback on that first video where she did that character, and people really liked it. They thought it was funny. And so she brought it back for this character too, or for this program too. So you can see here, poor Wilson on the left is just trying to throw away his egg carton, and pop, there goes Professor Profundus telling him that no, he can use it to start a garden and start seeds in it. So that was a lot of fun, and it was a really great way for them to see that their previous program had an effect on somebody. They thought it was funny, and they used it to improve their future programs. So I just thought that was really cool. I get a kick out of this video. You have to watch it.
I'm just letting everyone know that we're coming close to 1:30 and the end of this session. If you do have any questions, type into chat.
Please do. I'm almost done. I know I can talk everybody's ear off for an hour about this, but I'm not going to. So we want to make an impact, and we're doing these programs and keeping in touch with our community. We're helping our education grow. We're helping our people learn these specific skills, and we're also keeping our programming skills sharp by doing virtual programs. It's a great way to, you know, kind of show off the cool things that we can do. I mean, my friend Sarah here knows absolutely everything about the oceans and did this fantastic program for World Ocean Day, and had this cool jellyfish behind her. I mean, how cool is that? But in a time where we weren't seeing people in person and one-on-one, being able to do these virtual programs and get feedback on them was a great way to feel like we were still doing our jobs and we were still getting out there and getting in touch with people in the community. So what's the end game of all this? How can this help your recordings improve? We covered the before, so that was storyboards and organization of your program before you even get to filming. We covered during, which is the training process and the editing and things that you can do to improve while you're filming. And then we talked about peer-to-peer feedback, which is after your programs. So it's easy to get lost in the weeds of what a virtual program should be and what it feels like. And just knowing that there are specific, tangible ways that you can improve it really helped me a lot. So we are right at 4:30, and I know you guys probably are trying to get to your next presentation. If you want to leave questions in the chat, or if you want to stay and ask any, I would be more than happy to speak. My name is Kelly Williams, and you have my email address here. It's kwilliams@gwinnettpl.org. Please feel free to email me your success story or things that we can do together to help try to improve and get you to your success story. Our personal one is staff feedback, but any library can improve their recorded programs and expand their reach online. And I just think that's really cool. And if you're interested, here are the videos that I talked about during my presentation today. All right, Kelly, I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Okay,
How's it going, guys?
We can stop the recording.
Wow.